Can you talk a little bit about how some recent factors, specifically the rise of China, has impacted that dialogue?
Yeah, I mean, particularly during the Cold War, there was a clear political fit between the EU and the US. And there was also always the economic incentives in terms of jobs. But as the Cold War ended, as we did go through, it now seems hard to believe, a period of boom, that both these sort of motivations weakened. But the rise of China has, I think, driven us back together again, because it's very clear now that if the European Union and the United States don't set global standards, in a decade or so from now, it will be China that sets the global standards, and we'll have to apply Chinese standards. So this is, in a sense, I suppose it's selfish, but this is in a sense the EU and the US trying to retain global leadership on the economic front.
Mm-hmm. So there's been talk that a lot of observers have said that, you know, if there's a really strong model that's created by the US and the EU on this, it'll be a very good template for others to use going forward, including the U.S. and the EU with relationships with other countries. And but on the flip side, there's potential consequences if we don't come up with something here. Could you talk a little bit about the potential fallout if we aren't able to come together and build a model?
Take pharmaceuticals, for example. At the moment, if you want to market a new drug, you have to test it in the European Union. You have to do exactly the same tests in the United States, and there's a lot of duplication, there's a lot of cost involved in that. China, they can get pharmaceuticals onto the market much speedier, and they will again eclipse us, in particular in terms, not right now, not tomorrow, but as time goes on, as their research and science and so on continues to develop, they're going to get drugs onto the market much quicker than us. That's not just going to affect our ability to work together across the Atlantic or to sell within our own market, but it's going to stop our pharmaceuticals leading in terms of exporting to third markets, and China will start to dominate the markets and therefore start to set the global standards. Similarly with automobiles, it doesn't seem really likely, if you look around the world at the moment, China is clearly producing far more motor vehicles, but they're not seen as a global threat to the EU and the US. But if we have continue with two fragmented markets, it's not just the markets that are fragmented, it's the standards that are fragmented. If we continue down that path, then we'll find again that China will start to set the global standards. And for people, you're talking about a market of which is the biggest market in the world. If people want to get into the Chinese market, they'll meet the Chinese standards, so they'll start building factories that meet Chinese standards, not European or US standards. So this is about two things. It's about taking away, if you like, economic frictions between the EU and the US and make it easier to trade between us, and that itself brings an economic benefit and brings jobs. But it's also about the wider jobs that it creates in terms of keeping our competitiveness in the global economy.